I never thought the aroma of coffee could feel threatening until I walked into Matthew's Coffee headquarters that morning. The familiar scent of their signature roast, which had once brought me comfort, now filled me with dread as I headed to the board meeting where my mother-in-law, Victoria Matthews, would review my franchise application. 6 years of managing their busiest location in downtown Seattle, 2 business degrees, and a flawless track record meant nothing to Victoria. To her, I'd always be the barista who trapped her precious son James by getting pregnant in college. Never mind that the pregnancy was planned, that we'd been married for 8 years, or that James and I had built a beautiful life together. Mrs. Porter, Victoria's executive assistant, greeted me with practiced neutrality. "The board is ready for you." I smoothed my charcoal gray suit and gripped my presentation folder tighter. The leather portfolio contained everything: market research, financial projections, location analysis, 6 months of work proving I was the perfect candidate to open Matthew's Coffee's first franchise in Portland. Victoria sat at the head of the mahogany conference table, her silver hair perfectly coiffed, wearing her trademark red blazer like armor. 4 other board members flanked her, including my father-in-law Thomas, who offered me a kind but helpless smile. "Sarah," Victoria's voice dripped with false warmth, "how ambitious of you to apply for a franchise opportunity. Though I must say, it's rather presumptuous to assume marriage to my son qualifies you to become a business owner." I bit back a retort about her assuming that birth qualified her to run a company. Instead, I opened my portfolio and began my presentation. "As you can see from these projections." "Oh, darling," Victoria interrupted, not even glancing at my carefully prepared documents. "We both know this is a waste of the board's valuable time. Matthew's Coffee has been family-owned for 3 generations. We've never sold a franchise, and we certainly won't start with someone who learned the business from behind a counter." "Mother," James spoke from the doorway, making everyone turn. He wasn't supposed to be here. Conflict of interest. But my husband had apparently decided to defy his mother's explicit instructions. "Sarah's store has the highest revenue in the entire chain. She's more than qualified." Victoria's smile tightened. "James, dear, this is a closed meeting. And while Sarah is adequate as a manager, ownership requires a certain pedigree, an understanding of legacy." She turned to me. "Perhaps you should focus on more suitable goals, like giving James a sibling for little Emma." My cheeks burned. Victoria knew we'd been struggling with secondary infertility for years. It was a low blow, even for her. "Actually," I said, pulling out another document I'd brought as backup, "I'd like the board to review my store's numbers compared to the location you gave your niece Amanda last year." Victoria's face darkened. Everyone knew Amanda's store was hemorrhaging money, but Victoria had pushed it through, claiming family loyalty. "That's quite enough." Victoria stood, smoothing her blazer. "The board has reached its decision. Your application is denied. We'll be transferring you to our Pike Place location, effective immediately. A less demanding position might help you focus on your personal goals." A demotion. She was actually demoting me for daring to apply for a franchise. "You can't do that." James stepped forward. "It's discrimination." "I can do whatever I want, dear. I'm still CEO." Victoria's smile was pure ice. "Unless Sarah would like to resign? No one's forcing her to work for Matthew's Coffee." I gathered my documents slowly, methodically, even as my hands shook with rage. 6 years of condescension, of snide remarks about my background, of being treated like an interloper in the family business, all of it crystallized in this moment. "You're right, Victoria," I said quietly. "No one's forcing me to work for Matthew's Coffee. In fact," I pulled out my phone and sent a quick text. Within seconds, the large screen behind Victoria lit up with an incoming video call. "What is this?" Victoria demanded as an elegant woman in her 60s appeared on screen. "Hello, Victoria," the woman said smoothly. "I'm Margaret Chen from Chen Global Investments. I believe it's time we met." Victoria's face went pale. Chen Global had been buying massive amounts of Matthew's Coffee stock over the past year, but Victoria had blocked all their meeting requests. "Sarah, dear," Margaret continued, "shall we tell them now?" I smiled, feeling surprisingly calm. 6 months ago, when Victoria blocked my first franchise proposal, I took a meeting with Chen Global. They were very interested in my ideas for modernizing Matthew's Coffee while maintaining its core values. "What have you done?" Victoria whispered. Chen Global now owns 51% of Matthew's Coffee, I said, finally letting years of suppressed satisfaction seep into my voice. And as their newly appointed CEO, my first act will be to launch the franchise program. Starting with Portland. The boardroom erupted in chaos. Thomas was trying not to laugh, James was grinning openly, and the other board members were frantically pulling up stock information on their phones. But I only had eyes for Victoria, who had sunk back into her chair, her perfect composure finally cracking. "You can't," she started. "I can do whatever I want," I echoed her earlier words. "I'm CEO now, unless you'd like to resign. No one's forcing you to work for Matthew's Coffee. This is our family legacy," Victoria managed, her voice breaking. "And it still will be," I said more gently, "just with some new ideas, new opportunities. The kind of legacy that grows stronger by welcoming people in, not shutting them out." James wrapped an arm around my shoulders. "Told you she was qualified, Mother." Victoria stared at us, then at Margaret's amused face on the screen, then back at me. For the first time in 8 years, she seemed to really see me, not as the barista who married her son, but as a businesswoman who'd outmaneuvered her. "The board meeting is adjourned," I announced, gathering my things. "We'll reconvene tomorrow to discuss the transition. Victoria, I'll need your office cleared by end of day." I turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Victoria, I'm not transferring to Pike Place, but feel free to apply for a barista position there yourself. I hear it's less demanding." As James and I walked out, leaving Victoria sitting shell-shocked in what was now my boardroom, he squeezed my hand. "That was brilliant, but terrifying. How long have you been planning this?" I thought about the years of dismissal, of being treated like an outsider despite my contributions, of watching Victoria wield power like a weapon. Let's just say, I smiled, breathing in the now sweet scent of Matthew's Coffee, I learned from the best about playing the long game. The next morning, Matthew's Coffee headquarters felt different. The same tasteful decor, the same bustling employees. But now, the portrait of Victoria Matthews in the lobby seemed less imposing and more decorative. Like my mother-in-law, it was just another relic ready to be respectfully retired. Mrs. Porter, Victoria's, no, my executive assistant, Grace, greeted me with a genuine smile. The change in her demeanor was striking. "Your 9 a.m. meeting is set up in the conference room. And Mrs. Matthews," she left this. Grace handed me a small brass key with a handwritten note. "Office is yours. Try not to destroy everything I built." Classic Victoria, making even surrender sound like a threat. The office was immaculate, stripped of personal items, but with all corporate files meticulously organized. Only one photo remained, a faded image of Victoria's father-in-law opening the first Matthew's Coffee shop in 1952. I picked it up, studying the proud smile of the man who'd built this company from nothing. He'd been an immigrant with a dream, not unlike my own parents. I wondered what he'd think of Victoria using his legacy as a weapon of exclusion. "Keeping that one?" James asked from the doorway. "Yes," I decided. "To remind me why we're changing things." He crossed the room and kissed my cheek. "Speaking of changes, Mother's called an emergency family dinner tonight. Says if we're taking her company, we can't avoid her personal domain." I groaned. "Seriously? We haven't even finished the corporate transition. She's making her famous pot roast. The one she knows I'm allergic to." James winced. "I'll tell her you're busy." "No," I said, straightening my shoulders. "I'm CEO now. Time to handle the family side of the family business." The day passed in a blur of meetings. The board members who'd witnessed yesterday's takeover were surprisingly adaptable, especially once I shared my full vision for Matthew's Coffee's future. Even Thomas seemed relieved, though he diplomatically excused himself from voting on anything that might put him between his wife and daughter-in-law. By evening, I was exhausted but determined as we pulled up to the Matthews mansion. Victoria's pot roast might be a passive-aggressive power play, but I'd packed a protein bar in my purse. I hadn't survived 6 years of her tactics without developing contingency plans. Emma, our 7-year-old, bounced excitedly beside us. "Grandma said she has a surprise for me." James and I exchanged worried glances. Victoria's surprises usually came with strings attached. Victoria answered the door herself, perfectly coiffed despite her demotion. Her smile was razor-sharp. "Sarah, darling, moving into my office already? I hope you found everything. intact. Everything's perfect, Victoria. Very professional of you. Well, she ushered us inside. 30 years of professionalism doesn't vanish overnight, unlike some people's loyalty. Before I could respond, she swept Emma into a hug. And here's my precious granddaughter. Come see what Grandma got you. We followed them into the living room, where a child-sized business suit lay displayed on the sofa, complete with a miniature briefcase embossed with Future CEO in gold letters. Since your mother's so focused on her new position, Victoria told Emma sweetly, I thought you should look the part of a proper Matthews here. We can't have people forgetting where you come from. Emma's face fell slightly. She hated wearing suits, preferring the science-themed t-shirts she'd inherited with my passion. But she was also 7 and desperately wanted her grandmother's approval. Actually, I said before Victoria could press her advantage, Emma has some news about her future career plans, don't you, sweetie? Emma brightened immediately. I won first place in the school science fair. My project about coffee bean cultivation got picked for the district competition. Victoria's smile froze. How interesting. Sarah's been helping me understand the agricultural side of the business, Emma continued enthusiastically. Did you know Matthews Coffee could save money and help the environment by switching to shade-grown beans? Mom showed me the research. I bit back a smile as Victoria processed this. Her granddaughter, her chance to mold the next generation, was turning into a mini version of me instead. That's exactly the kind of innovative thinking Matthews Coffee needs, James said proudly. Right, Mother? Victoria's lips tightened, but years of social training won out. Of course, dear, though perhaps we should discuss more traditional aspects of the business over dinner. I made pot roast. Actually, James cut in. We brought something for everyone. He pulled out takeout bags from my favorite allergen-free restaurant, Sarah's Treat, part of her new employee wellness initiative. Victoria stared at the bags like they were personally offensive. You're replacing my pot roast with takeout? Not replacing, I said calmly. Adding options, including everyone, like we're going to do with the business. By giving away our exclusivity to franchises. By growing sustainably while maintaining quality control, like your father-in-law did when he expanded from 1 shop to 10. Victoria sank into her armchair, suddenly looking tired. You've thought of everything, haven't you? I learned from watching you. The difference is, I want to use that knowledge to build bridges, not walls. Emma, bored with adult conversation, had wandered to the massive family tree Victoria kept on the wall. Mom, why aren't you and Mihan here? The room went silent. The Matthews family tree was Victoria's pride and joy, meticulously updated with every birth, marriage, and business accomplishment. Except I realized it stopped at James. My marriage, my daughter, our contributions to the company, all conspicuously absent. Because, Victoria said stiffly, I haven't had time to update it. For 8 years? James asked quietly. Victoria didn't answer, but her silence said everything. I walked to the family tree, studying the faces of Matthews Coffee pioneers. You know what's interesting? Every major expansion in company history came from outsiders. Your father-in-law's wife suggested expanding to multiple locations. Your husband's cousin introduced the first espresso machines. Change isn't the enemy of legacy, Victoria. It's how legacies grow. And what changes do you have planned for my family's legacy? Victoria asked, her voice barely steady. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out a folder. Why don't we discuss that over dinner? I brought the full franchise proposal, and, I added, pulling out a framed photo, an updated family tree, one with all the branches. Victoria stared at the new family tree for a long moment. Then, to everyone's shock, she laughed. Well played, Sarah. Well played. She stood, smoothing her skirt. I suppose we should eat before everything gets cold. Emma, dear, you can tell Grandma more about your science project. I may not understand all this change, but... She met my eyes. I can learn. It wasn't acceptance, not quite. But as we gathered around the dinner table, Victoria asking Emma genuine questions about coffee cultivation, I realized it was something just as valuable. Progress. 3 months after the takeover, I sat in what used to be Victoria's office, reviewing the latest franchise applications. The Portland location was already under construction, and interest in Matthews Coffee franchises had exceeded our projections. A knock on my door made me look up. Victoria stood there, looking different than I'd ever seen her. Gone was the red power blazer, replaced by a simple navy suit. The past few months had softened something in her face, though her spine was still steel straight. "Do you have a moment?" she asked, her voice lacking its usual imperial tone. I gestured to the chair across from my desk, her old chair. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. "The new training program you implemented," she began, folding her hands in her lap. "It's impressive. Teaching franchise owners the roasting process from scratch, having them work every position before taking over. I wouldn't have thought of that." "Because you saw it as beneath you," I said quietly. "But every great coffee shop starts with understanding the basics." She nodded slowly. "Like you did. I've been reviewing your early performance reports. Before you married James, you learned every aspect of the business, even when you didn't have to." "I love this company," I said simply, even when it didn't love me back. Victoria flinched. "I've been visiting our locations," she continued, talking to the staff. "Did you know that when you were managing the downtown store, you paid for Sarah Chen's textbooks?" I remembered the young barista struggling through nursing school. She needed help. Now she's an ER nurse who still comes in for her morning coffee. "And Michael Torres, you gave him advances on his salary when his mother was sick. He's one of our best roasters now." Victoria's eyes glistened. "I built this company focusing on the bottom line, on maintaining the Matthews name. You built relationships, creative loyalty. The staff would walk through fire for you." "Business isn't just about profit," I said. "It's about people." "Yes," she whispered. "I'm beginning to understand that." She reached into her bag and pulled out a familiar red blazer. "I came to return this. It was my mother-in-law's, then mine. I always thought I'd give it to my daughter-in-law when she proved worthy of the Matthews name." I stared at the blazer, remembering how many times I'd seen her wear it like a crown. "But now I realized," she continued, "you never needed it. You built your own legacy, one that's stronger than anything I created." She placed the blazer on my desk. "I'm retiring," she announced. "For real this time. No advisory position, no meddling. You've more than proven you can run this company better than I ever did." I picked up the blazer, feeling its expensive fabric. "Keep it," I said, handing it back. "Some legacies are better left in the past. We're writing a new story now." Victoria's hands trembled as she took the blazer back. "James told me," he said, "you're trying IVF again." I tensed, waiting for the criticism, the subtle dig about family obligations. "I'd like to help," she said softly, "not with advice or opinions, just support. Whatever you and James decide, however your family grows, I'd like to be there. As a mother-in-law, if you'll let me." I studied her face, searching for the manipulation I'd grown so accustomed to. Instead, I found something that looked remarkably like hope. "Sunday dinners," I said finally. "No business talk, no pressure. Just family." "I like that." She stood, clutching her old blazer. "Thank you, Sarah, not just for this conversation, but for showing me a better way to lead, to live." As she reached the door, I called out, "Victoria." She turned. "Emma's been asking about learning to make hot chocolate. Maybe you could teach her your recipe." The smile that broke across her face was real, perhaps the first genuine one I ever seen from her. "I'd love that." After she left, I walked to the window overlooking the Seattle skyline. In the reflection, I could see the office that had once been my ultimate goal. Now it was just a room, important, but not defining. My phone buzzed with a text from James. "Doctor called. Test results are in. Coming up now." I touched my stomach, thinking about the IVF journey we'd started again, this time without the weight of Victoria's judgment. Whatever the results, we'd face them together. A few minutes later, James burst through the door, waving a paper and wearing the biggest grin I'd ever seen. "It worked." I breathed. He wrapped me in his arms, spinning me around like he had the day I told him about buying the company. "Twins," he whispered against my hair. "We're having twins." As we stood there, holding each other in what used to be his mother's office, I thought about legacy. Not the kind written in corporate documents or symbolized by red blazers, but the kind built through love, respect, and second chances. Matthews Coffee would continue to grow, to change, to welcome new people and ideas. And somewhere in this building, Victoria Matthews was probably staring at her old blazer, learning the same lesson I had. True power isn't in what you keep for yourself, but in what you're brave enough to share with others. Hey, James said, pulling back to look at me. What are you thinking about? I smiled, thinking of Sunday dinners and hot chocolate lessons, of franchise owners learning to roast coffee, and of Victoria learning to be a grandmother. Just as some businesses are built on coffee, I said, but the best ones are built on love.